Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of Zinespiration. I'm Ryan from Pocket Thoughts, along with Craig from 5 O'Clock Zines. We are in his house. I promise never to say that again. Today we're talking with Kara DJ. You know her from the Into a Larger World Star Wars fanzine, and also some of her awesome collage art on Instagram. We're going to be talking all things zines, artwork, and probably a little bit about Star Wars. Welcome, Kara.
Welcome.
Hi, how are you guys? Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks
for joining us.
You got it.
So, why Star Wars zine? Like, there's Star Wars everything else already. There's Star Wars novels, there's Star Wars comics, there's Star Wars books, Star Wars breakfast cereal I ate when I was a little kid. Why a Star Wars zine?
Well, zines have been a really huge part of Star Wars fandom since May of 1977. It's always been around, and it's kind of died down with the, blogs and YouTube channels and obviously podcasts. So I had just always wanted to make a zine in general, and then I made a Star Wars little pocket-sized zine to bring with me to Celebration last year in Chicago, and I wanted to trade it. So I made that little one, and I handed them out, and then I was like, I want to make a bigger one. And then I made one, and now we're 12 issues in, 12 issues in. So, it just kind of happened that way.
Wow. Yeah, and also you've it's not just a standard sort of Star Wars one. It's you've mixed a bit of art in there, the collage, haven't you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, collage art is a huge part of my world and has been for years and years and years. So that was kind of just a natural progression. I've done like scrapbooking and art journaling, so I was kind of just like bringing elements of that to the zine, and yeah. And then it just kind of worked out like that. So it's a really cool mix. I do everything analog. I don't do any digital layouts. I'll use like fonts sometimes from the computer. And obviously my images are from a computer, but I cut everything out and glue it onto the paper, scan it, and print it. That's like really, really important to me. I don't have that skill set anyway, but but it's important to me that it's all like super handmade. So
what you're saying is, in a few years, we're not going to see Into the Larger World special edition with a few extra surprises and a lost Jabba the Hutt scene or anything like that?
I mean, not unless I learn a whole new skill set, which, I mean, maybe, who knows, but probably not.
So this Star Wars isn't your first zine then, by the sounds of it. What was the first one you made?
It is my first zine. I might have made one in high school. Zines were very big in my high school. We had like a really artsy crew, and they were like very cool. It was a lot in my high school. It was all about like being in a band. Everybody had a band, but then there was also like the art kids were like very, very cool, and they all made zines. So I think I probably made one in that scheme somewhere, but like nothing to write home about. Like it was like 13 years ago maybe. So really my first zine was Star Wars.
Oh, okay. So what was your first introduction to zines? Do you remember?
I think it was just from like it being in high school. I was in an art club that was called Media Project, and it was like it was very much like alternative art, So I know that people were definitely making zines in there, so I'm sure that I saw them through that. And then also I worked at a bookstore in New York City in Manhattan called The Strand, which is it's a big deal in New York. It's one of the biggest used bookstores on the East Coast, and they have a lot of independent publications and a lot of zines up in their comic area. So I saw some stuff there too. Really, really just amazing what zines can be. It's like it's really cool. So
yeah. We've talked a little bit on Instagram before about one of my favorite zinesters that Ryan always laughs about, Comic Bus.
Yes.
Yes. So is that where you found Comic Bus as well, in that little bookstore?
Was in the bookstore, yeah, because I actually have his book somewhere on the shelf next to me. But But yeah, because we had a lot of his books in the store in our, like, I think it was in like the literary essays section or something. But I saw them, and it was really the handwriting that drew me into that. I was like, what is that? I love it so much. So I bought a bunch of the compilations that we got, and then it turns out that he goes to the Strand, or he did at that time, a lot. So I like saw him a couple times from far away, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I just thought the handwriting style and the writing style was really, really cool. So I do have a couple of those books. Yeah.
We've set a new record in this video. That's the fastest Craig has managed to break out something about Comet Bud.
Yeah.
It's becoming like a drinking game. Like you take a drink every time. Every time.
Yeah.
Whoever we interview next, I'll be like, I'm Ryan, and this is Craig, and he'll be like, and I like Comet Bus.
I know.
I really have to read more of the stuff that I have and like get deeper into it, but it's just a really cool thing to have. Just because, do I have one? Yeah, it's right here. Hold on, I have this one, and it's just like
the big one.
The style with the handwriting just like blew me away, and I just could stare at it. This stuff, it's so amazing. I could stare at it all day.
Yeah.
So anyway,
you mentioned before that like Star Wars fanzines are around in the 70s, and have you seen any of them, or do you have any of them, or?
I don't have them personally, but I was extremely, incredibly lucky and blessed to work on an episode of the docuseries Looking for Leia, which came out last year in the fall. It was I'm not sure how many part series that actually ended up being on the Sci-Fi Network, and you can see it on YouTube in most countries, and I believe you can see it on sci-fi.com. But it's called Looking for Leia, and it's all about just female fans and non-binary fans, and it talks about droid builders and all different like realms of fandom for those groups. It's just like the absolute coolest thing. And there is an episode about fanzines. So I, through one of my friends, Alyssa, who was the art director, asked me to possibly make some art for it. So what they did was they had pictures they wanted on the screen, but they were just still photos. So they kind of wanted a decoration for the background. So I collaged the background for these pictures. And I actually used some pages, like copies of some of the pages from the zines to make the collages. So I was able to see them that way, just on the computer, but it was just the coolest thing ever, ever, ever. And I can't recommend that series enough. It's so uplifting and just really, really fun to watch. I can't believe I was a part of it. It's still like the coolest thing. So yeah, I was able to see them that way and learn a lot more about them from that episode, because a few of the people who wrote the fanzines back in the 70s and 80s were in the episode talking all about the history of it. So I got to learn a lot about it that way, which was awesome.
I like what you do. You celebrate the movie, you celebrate the culture of it, the fandom, everything, and that's what a fanzine's supposed to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. And back in the early days of fanzines, it was actually a lot of fan fiction was a huge part of zines at that time, which I'm not super into that, but I think it's like really, really cool and fascinating. And so that was a really big focus of the Star Wars zines back then, as well as theories and speculation. And it's really, really fun to look back and see some of the things they were speculating on back then. It's so much fun. So yeah, it's a lot of mix of that.
Even in the Dark Ages, right? From after Return of the Jedi came out, up all the way until the special editions and Heir to the Empire. Really, the Dark Ages, there wasn't much Star Wars content, so people were making it up for themselves.
Exactly. Yes, it's so cool.
I want to move on to now the some of your artwork and the collaging, because it's like absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And we've actually discussed this on a few other previous episodes about how hard it is to actually collage. So do you have anything that you could just sort of show to give some people a bit of an idea of your style? Because it's one of those things that looks easy until you try it. Like, I think there's a lot of things like that. It's like people who can do it well, like you, make it look easy. And then when you actually try it, you go, hang on, damn, that's actually quite hard. So, yeah, I'd like to, can you show something?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, collage is something I've done for a really long time. I find it like incredibly relaxing. And I've been collecting snippets of magazines and books for like, so I have so much crap. It's like it's hard to dig through it all to find new stuff. But yeah, so I started making, I think this is probably a good one to show. I think you'll be able to see it. I started making these character collages. There's a glare because it's shiny, but so I take like a picture of a character and then kind of collage around the background. So this is IG-11 from The Mandalorian. And I try to incorporate a little bit about the character or about their story in it when I can. Even if it's kind of like super abstract or maybe it wouldn't be like easily readable and only I would get it. I still like doing that. So like, the fire, there's an element of fire to his story, let's just say. But so yeah, so that's one thing. And there's like only probably 1, 2, 3, 4 individual images in the background. But I really love ripping paper. That's like a huge thing for me. I love kind of ripping edges and shapes out of the paper and kind of using it almost like to paint. That's one of my favorite things. This one is of Boba Fett, good old Boba Fett. And I like this one. I added a little element of my handwriting to the top, which is cool. It says, no good to me dead. And yeah, so that's the main thing I do with my collage is just choose a character and then kind of make the background from the clips that I have. So I do agree that here's another. This one's a more recent one. This is Ben Solo. It's got I used some vintage plates in this one. I don't know. I love them. So that's that. But yeah, I do agree that it's definitely not easy, but I find that when you get a flow going with it and you can really like give it time and sit with it and sit with the pieces and move it around in different ways, it's so soothing. I feel like it's so relaxing. I taught a collage class a while back last year, and the person, only one person showed up, but it was like they were so like, oh, I can't do it, and then they ended up making like the coolest thing. It's like you really never know. So yeah, I definitely encourage trying collage because it's a really cool way to use your brain.
So what's the kind of creative process that you go through? So you said like often you'll use abstract images to help define character traits and stuff for the foreground character. So like maybe a little free form, like let's suppose someone messages you and says, hey, can you do me a collage of Admiral Akbar? Like what kind of stuff are you going to put in the background?
For Admiral Akbar, I would definitely look for ocean stuff. I would look for a lot of blue and then also the thing I like to do with Star Wars, especially with collage, is with most of the characters anyway, is to mix in an element of nature and then to mix in an element of machinery when I can. Because like there's like a planet like Naboo, which is like so green and lush and beautiful and filled with life, but then there's like a Star Destroyer, which is cold and sterile and metal. So I like to kind of try to bring in both, but then also like I did a collage of Admiral Hux from the from the sequel trilogy, and he's like kind of a bad guy, but I put sharks in his collage because I found this like cool little rip of sharks, so I put sharks in with him, which I thought was cool. And like for Ben Solo in this one, I put this little clock in the corner because there's some theories that maybe he's in the world between worlds, which is kind of like a non-universe. Maybe he's stuck in some alternate realm, so I kind of put that in there as like a hint to that. So I don't always do that, but I do try to. When I'm going through my stuff, I'll have the character in mind. But then it's also a lot about color. I've started collecting a lot more just solid colors from magazines because they fit so well in like little spaces. And patterns, all different types of patterns I love too. But nature is really my favorite thing. Flowers, trees, landscapes, like in the IG-11, there's like all these mountains and this is desert down there. So that's definitely a big part of it too. it's kind of a mix of everything.
And
So you put a lot more. You put a lot more thought into it than I possibly would have. If you said, Ryan, make a collage of Admiral Akbar, it would have been just like 100 mouse traps behind him.
Well, if I had a mousetrap, I'd put it in there.
like, what are the collage, or who are the collages for, and who are the zines for? Like, do you have like a Patreon or something like that?
I don't have a Patreon, but I do have just basically a subscription. So all of the back issues of my zine from 2019, I started in June, so I have June through December of 2019. They're always available to order. At my Instagram, I have a link in my bio that has, I use Google order forms, and then just take payment with Venmo or PayPal. And so the back issues are always available. You can order like the individual ones if you're just interested in one, or I have all of them. And then I have a 2020 subscription basically for the whole year. So
you're doing a zine a month on top of your collages, which, you know, usually, like, there's always been such a joke with zinesters when they come out with a new zine, and it's always oh, sorry, it took me so long to make this zine, blah, 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 blah. There's, you know, we have reasons why. But you're doing one a month, and that's pretty remarkable to keep going like that, just to have that drive and that will to want to keep creating.
Yeah, it's great. And it's like I have a good crew of subscribers now, and it's growing all the time, which is amazing. So it's like I want to do it for them, especially times like these, as we're all saying now, like times like these where everything is kind of like a mess. It's like I people tell me that it just like makes them happy to see it in the mailbox, and I'm like, I want to make 12 more, like right now. So yeah, it's like, and it's fun to have, like, I get the ideas really far ahead of time, and I'm already working on June and July now, and I just finished May. And also, I'm very lucky to have a lot of people that are interested in contributing, so it doesn't always have to come purely from me. I have a lot of people who write articles for the zine, and a lot of really talented artists, Ryan being one of them, who who submit art to the zine as well. So that's really lucky too, because then it doesn't all lay on me to come up with everything. And I know that I always have a lot of people that I can reach out to also, who usually are very like receptive and want to be involved. Like I actually, this was issue number 10, was all about Obi-Wan. It was a special issue, and I reached out via email to the actor who is the voice of Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars cartoon, and his business manager responded, and they let me send him some questions, and he answered them. And so it's like, that was like just so lucky. So yeah, so it's like there's always like places to find stuff if I'm feeling kind of like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So that's really lucky.
I got these last week. Came in the mail. And, like, I was like giddy when I came home from work, and it was, as soon as I saw the envelope, I knew it was from you because of like the way you tape it and everything, and the, like, I've got you now, and I was just like, they're here, I can't wait to put in.
And even just like on top of what Ryan's saying, you know, working hard, putting them out once a month, but even the quality level, like some people might sit back and go, oh, you know, once a month's not that bad, but these are high quality stuff. These are really nice stuff. So you're doing a really fantastic job. Like, what's next year's zine sort of look like? Are you hoping to like add more pages, or are you hoping to add the quality, or what sort of way are you hoping to move?
That's tricky. I mean, that would be really cool. I would be really interested in different formats. I love the format that I do right now. It's just 8.5 by 11 folded in half with staples. So like, I do love that, but I would be interested in maybe playing around with other stuff. And I do want to make, when I have time, when is that? But I would love to make some like non-Star Wars zines as well. Like I've made really only 2. One was just like a tiny thing, and then I made one that was all just art that I used in those old magazines I was talking about. There were all these cigarette ads, so I made one that was just collages made purely from cigarette ads. So I would love to do more stuff like that, and a couple maybe non-Star Wars related zines, but But yeah, so I know like for June and July, because I know I'm going to be working on commissions, I'm going to take a lot of contributions from other people those months, just because it'll make it a little easier on me. But also, I'll pick a few things that I have ideas in mind. I'll probably try to interview at least one or two different people. I've been really liking interviewing collectors lately. I'm so fascinated by collectors. I have like very little Star Wars stuff. I try, but I'm like so interested in people who have like massive collections of different things, and then they'll like choose one thing to kind of focus on. And I love that. I'm so nuts about that. So I'm sure I'll put that in there again. And yeah, I have a few people who are interested in writing stuff, and I always welcome people to give me their ideas and stuff too. So yeah, so that'll be helpful. And then as far as like when it gets into the fall, Mandalorian's going to come back hopefully for its second season, virus depending, I guess, but it should be. So definitely going to make something about that. And Clone Wars is ending right now, so I'm going to have to make something about that. And it's like, there's always something with Star Wars. So
I like how you always try and tie into what's going on. So when Rise of Skywalker was coming out at Christmas time, you had like an all Kylo Ren zine, right?
mm-hmm.
Empire's 40th anniversary is this month. Your newest zine coming out all about Empire. I think it's really smart how you're thinking ahead on what's coming up in like the mythology of Star Wars, and how you want to like kind of put your own stamp into it, like the right place, the right time.
For sure. And it's cool because it ends up making it kind of like this is the Kylo Ren issue, which I didn't draw this, but it's such an amazing illustration. Will Torres is a comic artist, and he drew that for me. I was at a really tiny small town convention, like real small, and I barely sold anything, but I saw him, and I knew him because he had come to, or I recognized his work because he had come to a Barnes & Noble I worked at. And so I went up to him and was like, oh, I remember you from that, and your art is so great. And he was like, oh, I'll draw you something. What do you want me to draw? And I was like, Kylo Ren. And he was like, yeah. And then he drew this in like 15 minutes. And I was like, can I put it on the cover of my zine? He was like, yeah. So it like is so good. But anyway, so I like to do this stuff as up to date as I can with what's going on currently, because it makes it sort of like a really cool time capsule. Because like, for example, in this one I was talking about everything that we had seen Kylo Ren do in the sequel trilogy so far, but it was before episode 9 came out. So it's like the last page is just me being like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But now it's like, well, we know. So that's kind of fun. And like the Mandalorian issue, this is from a pre-Baby Yoda world, like we didn't know Baby Yoda existed when I made this. So it's cool to see me like speculate about what's going to happen in the show. And I had no idea that like the biggest thing I couldn't have even imagined. So that's super fun too, to kind of look back on it in that way.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you pee your pants if you saw George Lucas reading a copy of your zine?
I would leave my body, because the thing is, I don't think that he would like it, because not that he he wouldn't think it was bad, but he would just be like, I don't care. Like, and he shouldn't care, he love him so much, and he doesn't need no. Look, if I ever saw George Lucas carrying one of my zines, I would ascend. That's all I'll say.
He would probably be like, oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. The world of zines, as you two know far, far better than me, is so large that it's like kind of overwhelming. And like I'm more in the Star Wars world than I am in the zine world, and there's so much there. And I think that the based on the creativity that I've glimpsed from the zine universe, I feel like that's going to be around forever. I really do. Because like, I think there's maybe something to be said for having a digital version of a zine just to make it more accessible to people, especially depending on what content you're talking about. Like, because I know a lot of zines are political, and a lot of zines are like really important in that way. So it's like, if it can make it more accessible, then that's awesome. But I don't think there's ever going to be a danger of physical zines going away. it's one of those things that once you try it and realize that you can do it, and how fun it is, and not that it's easy, but it's very accessible as something that everyone can at least try. And I think as soon as you try it once, you're like, I love that, and you want to do it more. Like I posted a little IGTV video of me making, like, I don't have it with me, but my mini tiny pocket zine. It's that, you guys know it. It's the one where you just fold it and you rip the one part and then you can fold it into a little zine. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And I posted just like a little video of me making one of those, and a bunch of people sent me that they tried it and that they did it. And I was like, that's great. Like, so I think it's like, I don't think that physical zines are in any danger.
Do you say, the world of zines is very large, and of course the Star Wars world is very large. You may even say that you have stepped into a larger world.
Uh-huh.
With the like Star Wars community, for instance, is a great place for getting your zines out there and not being part of that large extra zine community because of like the convention settings and the fandom that already goes along with it. Like myself, for instance, there are no zine fests where I live. There's no zine conventions. I've realized that if there's going to be a zine convention around me, I'm going to be the one who has to start it. Whereas you can take your Star Wars zines to a Star Wars convention and introduce all, the Star Wars fans to zines. And I think that you are in a position to, get some young creators interested in doing things, on their own, by themselves, on their own terms, because a lot of people who are into like sci-fi fandoms are creative types to begin with. They like to write, they like to tinker in the computer, and do art and make things,
Definitely.
and, create text and stuff. And I think you're in a position to really inspire some people.
I sure hope so. And yeah, it's like, it's funny because I guess maybe I haven't researched that much, but I don't know of any other Star Wars zines around. I hope that if there are some, that they will message me. But like I've seen a couple like fan fiction things, but not like a zine exactly like mine. I think with Star Wars fandom right now, podcasts is like the big thing. And there's so many good ones. But anyway, but yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people who have subscribed to me didn't like they call it a zine, like they've never really heard of it before, and it's not their fault. It's like they just haven't heard of it. But I think that maybe they'll be more likely to, once they see another one, to check that out because they've seen mine, so they kind of know what it is, and yeah, I mean, I hope that it inspires people to be creative, because that's the best thing in the world. So
yeah, I think it's cool. I think you are really being like a first contact for a lot of people into the zine world, coming from the Star Wars world. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
But at least one person has sent me a picture that they made a collage and that they were kind of inspired by my stuff, and that like blew my mind. I was like, what do you mean? Like, do it more. What? And then like, so that was like the coolest thing.
People always talk about Christmas in July. I don't know if you're familiar with the saying, Christmas in July. There's usually a sale, right? Christmas in July. I'm just putting this out there, no pressure. Star Wars holiday special in July.
I'm not against it. The holiday special is a trip. It's hard to watch. I've never gotten through the whole thing, but I have a Facebook group with a bunch of my friends, and we have been watching something every Saturday, and I believe that the holiday special is on the schedule for a couple weeks from now. So I'm gonna dive in with them because it's better than watching it alone. It's very holiday special. Special is a good word for it. It's very unique.
I've seen it too many times. I've seen it over 10 times. I've watched it over 10 times. I used to have a bootleg of it that killed my DVD player. My DVD player died while watching the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. It was really fun.
I love your zines, Kara. I'm very happy to be a subscriber. But mostly what I love is the passion that you put into it. Like, you are so driven and so passionate, and it comes out in your work. And anyone who's not reading your zines or following you on Instagram is really missing out. So if you're watching this and you aren't subscribed to her zines, the link is below. Send her your money. Do the right thing.
And
Forceful.
also in the May issue, there is an illustration from Ryan, and it's awesome. So check it out.
Yeah, he's a bit of a hack, but he's good looking.
All right.
Good night,
Goodbye. See you. Thank you.